Hello, welcome to Schools Not Out, your daily classroom for CSEC and CAPE students. You can watch this lesson real time on Television Jamaica's YouTube channel or on onespodmedia.com. We also are live on Music 99 and gojamaica.com. If you have any questions today on today's subject, CSEC, English Lit, you can send them into Television's Jamaica Facebook page or on Instagram at Television Jamaica. Today's lesson is on analyzing poetry, and I am Shirlene Woodburn. So today we are looking at CSEC English B, and the genre we are looking at is poetry. You like poetry, don't you? Don't you like poetry? I love it. And some persons would say they don't want it in the syllabus. Just give me prose and drama. Why? When you study poetry, your brain just expands and you are able to take on a lot of other technical things in your mind because you develop critical thinking. And that's so very, very important. So then, we are going to look today on orchids. Get out your poem, please. Get your notebook and your pencil. And we are going to have some fun looking at Simmons McDonald's orchids. Before we proceed, we are going to look at our CSEC objectives.
To 12 noon with weekly Schools Not Out tutorial sessions on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Schools Not Out, live CSEC and CAPE lessons here on TVJ. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, along with TVJ, present Schools Not Out, CSEC and CAPE lessons live Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 noon with weekly Schools Not Out tutorial sessions on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Schools Not Out, live CSEC and CAPE lessons here on TVJ. The Ministry of
Reduce your risk of viral illnesses like the flu and coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing with a tissue and dispose of it. Avoid close contact with anyone with a cold or flu-like symptoms. If you become ill, please visit your doctor or the nearest health center and share your travel history. The flu and coronavirus can kill. Let's protect each other. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Others from getting sick by washing your hands after coughing or sneezing, when caring for the sick, before, during, and after you prepare food, before eating, after toilet use, when hands are visibly dirty, and after handling animals or animal waste.
COVID-19 Youth and Information, along with TVJ, present Schools Not Out, CSEC and CAPE lessons live Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 noon with weekly Schools Not Out tutorial sessions on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Schools Not Out, live CSEC and CAPE lessons here on TVJ. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, along with TVJ, present Schools Not Out, CSEC and CAPE lessons live Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, with weekly Schools Not Out tutorial sessions on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Schools Not Out, live CSEC and CAPE lessons here on TVJ. The Ministry of Education.
Reduce your risk of viral illnesses like the flu and coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing with a tissue and dispose of it. Avoid close contact with anyone with a cold or flu-like symptoms. If you become ill, please visit your doctor or the nearest health center and share your travel history. The flu and coronavirus can kill. Let's protect each other. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Tip: protect yourself and others from getting sick by washing your hands after coughing or sneezing, when caring for the sick, before, during, and after you prepare food, before eating, after toilet use, when hands are visibly dirty, and after handling animals or animal waste. COVID-19 tip: protect yourself and others from getting sick by washing your hands after coughing or sneezing, when caring for the sick, before, during, and after you prepare food, before eating, after toilet use, when hands are visibly dirty, and after handling animals or animal waste. COVID-19 tip:
Youth and Information, along with TVJ, present Schools Not Out, CSEC and CAPE lessons live Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, with weekly Schools Not Out tutorial sessions on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Schools Not Out, live CSEC and CAPE lessons here on TVJ. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, along with TVJ, present Schools Not Out, CSEC and CAPE lessons live Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, with weekly Schools Not Out tutorial sessions on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Schools Not Out, live CSEC and CAPE lessons here on TVJ. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, along with TVJ, present Schools Not Out, CSEC and CAPE lessons live Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, with weekly Schools Not Out tutorial sessions on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Schools Not Out, live CSEC and CAPE lessons here on TVJ. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, along with TVJ, present Schools Not Out, CSEC and CAPE lessons live Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, with weekly Schools Not Out tutorial sessions on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Schools Not Out, live CSEC and CAPE lessons here on TVJ. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, along with TVJ, present Schools Not Out, CSEC and CAPE lessons live Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, with weekly Schools Not Out tutorial sessions on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Schools Not Out, live CSEC and CAPE lessons here on TVJ.
Reduce your risk of viral illnesses like the flu and coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing with a tissue and dispose of it. Avoid close contact with anyone with a cold or flu-like symptoms. If you become ill, please visit your doctor or the nearest health center and share your travel history. The flu and coronavirus can kill. Let's protect each other. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Reduce your risk of viral illnesses like the flu and coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Cover your nose and mouth.
Welcome back to Schools Not Out. We just got started on CSEC English Lit. And we were looking at the objectives, the CSEC objectives. The CSEC objectives, students should be able to grasp insights from reading literature by detecting connotations in the use of words and in the presentation of ideas between connotative and denotative meaning. They should be detecting and assessing the apt use of devices. And they should be recognizing and responding to the appropriateness or otherwise of the medium, including form and structure. And the last one we're looking at in this class is recognizing implicit themes. Remember that we are studying Simmons MacDonald's Orchids. And we are going to begin by reading the poem. We are going to read the poem. Now, let us look at some strategies for reading. The first thing we would like to do is read and listen. Then, upload imagery related to the title. Search for figurative expressions and name them. Examine the form and structure and derive thematic ideas. Remember, read and listen, upload imagery, search for figurative devices, examine the form and structure, and derive thematic ideas. I am going to go through that step by step. Make sure you make a note of them and follow me as I read. Let us read. I leave this house, box pieces of the 5-week life I have gathered. I'll send them on to fill the spaces in my future life. One thing is left, a spray of orchids someone gave from bouquet, one who makes a ritual of flower-giving scent. The orchids have no fragrance, but purple petals draw you to look at the purple heart. I watered them once. When the blossoms were full bloom like polished poems, I was sure they'd wilt and I would toss them out with the 5-week litter. They were stubborn. I starved them. They would not die. This morning, the bud at the stalk's tip unfurled. I think I'll pluck the full-blown blossom and press them between pages of memory. Perhaps in their thin, dry transparency, I'll discover their peculiar poetry. The first time, it's not getting in. So we read again. I leave this house, box pieces of the 5-week life I've gathered. You know, when I saw the word box, the first time I read this, I said box, not this, you know. Oh, box. Box pieces. I was saying, I leave this house box. I was saying, is this house like a box? So that is a trick. Because poetry uses the economy of words and makes your mind tick. So let's go again. I leave this house, box pieces of the 5-week life I've gathered. I'll send them on to fill spaces in my future life. One thing is left, a spray of orchids someone gave from bouquet, one who makes a ritual of flower-giving scent. The orchids have no fragrance, but purple petals draw you to look at the purple heart. I watered them once, when the blossoms were full-blown. Like polished poems, I was sure they'd wilt, and I would toss them out with the 5-week litter. They were stubborn. I starved them. They would not die. This morning, the bud at the stalk's tip unfurled. I think I'll pluck the full-blown blossoms, press them between pages of memory. Perhaps in their thin, dried transparency, I'll discover their particular poetry. You heard the voice? The tone? It's a dead tone. Did you hear it? The person is not animated. The person is having mixed feelings. Do you hear the mixed feelings? Let us look at the poem and see what connotations we are able to identify. I leave this house, box pieces. It makes you want to stop right here. Of the 5-week life I've gathered, I'll send them on to fill spaces. Connotation, to fill spaces. What comes to mind when you say fill spaces? Emptiness. Something is needed. Something is missing to fill spaces. So that's one connotation. Makes a ritual. Someone gave a bouquet and this person makes a ritual. A ritual. If something is a ritual, it is something that you would normally be doing all the time, not necessarily thinking about it. It becomes almost without feeling. You just go through the motion. So what is suggested here? That there was not necessarily a deliberate thought that went into the flower giving. Let's go down. The blossoms were full-blown, like polished poems. Full-blown, the orchid was once very fresh and beautiful, like polished poems. It is saying something beautiful. Poetry is something beautiful, and the orchids are a finished work of beauty. I was sure they'd wilt. Wilt. What is suggested by the idea of wilt? Life is leaving. Life is going away. Life is going away out of the entity, wilt. So we see that the idea of wilt, they were stubborn. The orchids were stubborn. Orchids are plants. They were stubborn. So they have taken on the qualities of a person. They are personified. The idea that the orchids were reluctant to die because the persona really wanted it to die. I was sure they'd wilt. But the orchids were stubborn. They would not die. I starved them. How would you starve nature? You starve nature when you refuse, for example, to water. That's the person did. She or he did not water the orchids. But what happened? This morning, the bud at the stalk's tip unfurled. New life appeared. The idea of new life is suggested because the orchids were expected to wilt. But what happened? New life unfurled, came up out of the orchid. Going further down, the person says, I think I'll pluck the full-blown blooms. You know, take them on the journey. Press them between pages of memory. Pages of memory. It's not as if your brain is actually a book and you press the orchids in the pages. But it is suggesting that in our mind, we store our experiences in compartments. So you can remember that period of your life and then another period of your life, and it's been likened to pages. Understand? Pages of memory. The person is taking the bud to store in pages of memory. And the thought is that maybe when they die, transparency, you can just something you can look through. So the idea is that I still don't understand, but hopefully one day I'll be able to look through and discover their particular poetry. So we were looking at connotative expressions. Connotative expressions, if you will remember, are expressions that have some other meaning that is suggested, another idea. It is not just everyday conventional understanding. You can pull something more out of it, and that's part of what makes poetry exciting. And the way it is written to make your mind think. So we looked at the idea of box. Box being confined. Something is boxed. And we said it's not this one. Okay, it's the one that goes into a compartment and you close it. So box, giving you ideas. Spaces, filling spaces. Imagery of emptiness. And we saw that we were looking at the simile like polished poems. The figurative expression like here. Personification, they were stubborn. Unfurling of the bud, an image there of new life coming out. Resilience in spite of. You're trying to put me down and let me die, says the orchid. If I can borrow the personification here, I am going to live. I have more in me than you think. So, image coming up of new life, and that had an effect on the person. So, we are now looking at symbolic representations, and so far we saw two main symbolic representations. We saw the house and we saw the orchids. Now, we looked at the filling of spaces, metaphor for emptiness. A metaphor for emptiness. I am empty. I would like to be filled. The blossoms were full-blown like polished poems. We saw that was a simile. We heard the tone when we started reading. The tone, one of ambivalence. I don't really care much about what's happening around me right now. It was a low tone, almost a dead tone. And because of the tone, you get the mood. I am not really comfortable in myself right now. So we're going to put it all together to look at the form, the structure, and derive at the theme. So let me look at the theme right now. How do I arrive at the theme? We have been coming down and looking at the imagery. Let's go back. The dominant idea that is coming to you as you examine the poem. That is going to tell you the theme. What dominant thought? So this person is leaving the house, moving on. That is telling me that the person is not settled. Then the idea of boxing up shows that it could suggest that my life is not really what I want it to be right now. Why would you want to leave the orchid behind? That is, an orchid is a flower of wisdom and magnificence and beauty. And it came to you as a present. But you want to leave it behind. So I am picking up and drawing from the different aspects of the poem to say that the theme is what? So we look at nature, because most of the time the person is talking about nature as indicated by the title. So the title is a very significant aspect of arriving at the theme. The title Orchids, and orchids belong to nature. And most of the time, by the time the person started talking about moving on, the person had reached the orchid. And most of the time, the person is engrossed in talking about the effect of neglect on the orchid and how the orchid has managed to survive. So the first idea is nature. Nature has the ability to survive against the odds. And then you want to say survival is another idea that comes. Survival against the odds. That's very important. So we saw that we're looking at nature and we're looking at the desire to survive. Now let's look at the form of the poem, the external features of the poem. Do you see how the poem looks? The poem is not all compressed together. The poem has spaces. Spaces. The speaker says, I send them on to fill spaces in my future life. Look at all these spaces. So the way the poem is structured, physically looking at it, the layout, is also giving us ideas to draw from the theme. So spaces, lack of unity, discomfort in the person's life. Put that with the idea of boxing up, and put that with why you want to kill a beautiful orchid like that. And we are beginning to get it all together. So the shape, the form of the poem, what the person is talking about, the orchids come together. And the figurative devices that are used all come together to make up, that structure. The one thing makes a statement. So, what would you say about the appearance of the poem? What can you say about it? We just looked at it. The poem is not, the verses, they don't really follow each other one by one. It is at these spaces there. I think it is significant that the poem is crafted with these spaces. It's telling us something about the person's life. Now, what is your interpretation of the poem? What is your interpretation of the poem? Is it about orchids? Or is it something else? Is the poem about orchids or is it something else? What makes you say it could be something else? Okay, because you see where the person was trying to kill the orchid and it didn't die. Okay, the person is mean and wicked. Doesn't really like nature, just putting up with it. Okay, all right then. So we can think about human behavior and we can say what it is about human behavior that we can draw out of this. So if I'm going to interpret the poem, I'm going to say something else that I get from studying the poem. So I am saying that the poem is about when we are uncomfortable in ourselves, we can do some things that are not nice. Okay then. How does form, structure, and theme work together for your appreciation? So your appreciation can be, I like it or I don't like it. If you don't like it, it can be a lesson to you. I don't like it because whenever I read it, I just want to cry. Or I like it because whenever I read it, I really feel strong. I really feel happy. I want to smile. It makes me laugh. So that's appreciation. So how does the form, structure, and theme work together for your appreciation? How does the three make you able to say something really meaningful about the poem? How? All right then. It helps you to be able to talk about the poem because you want to show the relationship between the three. So you're not just looking at orchids as nature. You're looking at the poem and to see how it is crafted. The physical form of the poem can give you an idea of how to appreciate the poem. And when we looked at orchids, we saw that the poem had these gaps in between, and these gaps are indicative of the discomfort or the lack of, equilibrium in the person's life. And we looked at the figurative devices, the comparison, and we saw the personification, and we saw the metaphor for emptiness, and these come together to make us appreciate the poem. Now, let us say that you're going to write your essay on orchids. You're going to write your essay. Now, when you're writing your essay, you want to divide, as you know, into different parts. You would open by identifying the poem and the poet. Give your gut reaction. I don't like it, or you like it. This is literature. The beauty of literature is that it enables you to express yourself. It enables you to express yourselves, and you, so long as you're able to give support for the particular answer, it can be acceptable. So give your gut reaction, Explain the literal meaning briefly. Close with your thesis, that statement, that sentence, which should give an idea of the theme, the technique, and the imagery that is crafted in the poem. So you'd have your introduction. Okay, you get it? Okay then, so you may want to write this down or take your smartphone and take a picture. The body. Separate each aspect of the thesis sentence and transition smoothly in paragraphs and using brief citations from the poem. So, the theme, the technique, and the imagery, you want to deal with them separately in the essay. And then you'd have your conclusion. You would sum up the writing and include any insight into the human condition that you have gleaned from the poem. Let us look at a sample introduction. This would be my introductory paragraph for this poem. This is only the introductory paragraph, and when we return, we will look at it in depth. All right then? So see you.
The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, along with TVJ, present Schools Not Out, CSEC and CAPE lessons live Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, with weekly Schools Not Out tutorial sessions on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Schools Not Out, live CSEC and CAPE lessons here on TVJ. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, along with TVJ, present Schools Not Out, CSEC and CAPE lessons live Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, with weekly Schools Not Out tutorial sessions on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Schools Not Out, live CSEC and CAPE lessons here on
with a tissue and dispose of it. Avoid close contact with anyone with a cold or flu-like symptoms. If you become ill, please visit your doctor or the nearest health center and share your travel history. The flu and coronavirus can kill. Let's protect each other. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Reduce your risk of viral illnesses like the flu and coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing with a tissue and dispose of it. Avoid close contact with anyone with a cold or flu-like symptoms. If you become ill, please visit your doctor or the nearest health center and share your travel history. The flu and coronavirus can kill. Let's protect each other. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Reduce your risk of viral illnesses like the flu and coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing with a tissue and...
Welcome back to Schools Not Out. We were discussing how we would just draft out the introductory paragraph. And I'm going to do that quickly because I have another idea to give to you. So, the introductory paragraph. Remember the outline I gave you? You are to include something of what you feel out in the poem. Simmons MacDonald's Orchids, notice that I put it in quotation marks, is a poem that evokes an attitude of ambivalence as the speaker's mood shifts from admiration to resentment and finally to reluctant acceptance as attention is riveted on an undeserving spray of orchids. The speaker begins by explaining his or her imminent departure from a house in which he or she lived for 5 weeks. There are several boxes with belongings ready to be shipped off to the new destination. The only thing to be left behind is a remnant of a bouquet of orchids with which the speaker was gifted. The orchids are unscented, but extraordinary. The speaker admits that the orchids have been deliberately neglected and left to die, but the orchids were resilient and they unexpectedly bloomed. The speaker decides to pluck the blooms, which will eventually die and hopefully reveal greater understanding. In this poem, the struggle for survival, remember when I was talking about that? That's the thematic sentence. The struggle for survival is apparent. Orchids are symbolic, and form and structure complement both. So that is the kind of introduction that you want to give to your essay. And then you would go now and pull these out and develop them with reference to the poem as you go along. Now suppose you needed to compare orchids with another poem on the CSEC English B list. What would you do? Let us see. Let us look at Wordsworth's sonnet composed upon Westminster Bridge. You are required to do comparative analysis. So you're doing a comparative analysis and we really would like an idea of how to do the comparative analysis. So firstly, you would study each poem separately, similarly to what we did with orchids. You remember the procedure? You read, and you listen to the sound, and so on. Then you look at specific imagery and technique and those, all the things that we said. Then you would do this, the other poem just the same. Just the same. Then you're going to merge. So let us look at, you're making your notes, and you have a Venn diagram. Let us work with what a Venn diagram looks like. And over here you have orchids. And over here you put something like sonnet on Westminster Bridge, you know, shorten it. So sonnet Sonnet on Westminster. What do they have in common? You would put here. And what they don't have in common, you'd put over here. So when you are writing your analysis, you'd want to say what they have in common, and you would merge the two ideas into one. And we know already that nature is a very prominent feature in both. Sorry I have to go, class has ended, but I look forward to seeing you again on Schools That Out. That's all for today. I hope you grasp the points we discussed. You can catch a repeat of today's lesson on JNN later at 5 p.m. and in Schools Not Out highlights on Saturday between 1 and 4 p.m. It also will be on video on demand on onespotmedia.com. Next up, we've got CSEC Principles of Accounts with Latoya. See you soon.
The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, along with TVJ, present Schools Not Out, CSEC and CAPE lessons live Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, with weekly Schools Not Out tutorial sessions on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Schools Not Out, live CSEC and CAPE lessons here on TVJ. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, along with TVJ,